this video, I want to show you an alternative way to render your final image, namely using progressive passes. So far, we've only used progressive passes for preview purposes, and the final rendering was always done using bucket quality. If you want, you can also use this parameter for your final image. To do this, go to the top and switch from basic mode to advanced. Then, under the sampling tab, you'll find the option to render the final version using progressive. By default, it is set to bucket. If I change it to progressive, the final image will be rendered using progressive passes. You can then directly adjust the number of passes to be rendered. Let's say I enter 100 for fun. This value is mirrored, and I can switch back to basic mode. Now you can see that the value is also set to 100 under progressive passes. So, if I were to render the image now, leaving it at 100 passes, I would go to render to picture viewer, and the image will be rendered using progressive passes. We can see the result here at the bottom. The image is now finished. This rendering is exactly the same as what we see in our render view. Whether this is advantageous in terms of rendering time depends on the specific scene. I made some test renderings for you. I rendered the image once using bucket rendering with the quality set to very high, which took 30 seconds. Then, I did the same using progressive rendering with 2048 samples, which took 1 minute and 8 seconds, more than twice as long. If I click on it now, you won't see much at first glance. I need to zoom in a bit to show you better. Let's go down to the shadow area, where we can clearly see some noise. Now let's switch back to bucket rendering quality very high. This is what the rendering looks like. It's relatively noise-free. There's still a slight noise, though. Now let's switch to progressive rendering with 2048 samples. As you can see, the noise is significantly stronger. I also rendered it with 3072 samples. Comparing it with 2048, there's a slight improvement. However, the rendering time increased significantly to 1 minute and 41 seconds. Then, I used 4096 samples. There are only marginal improvements. Now the rendering time is about 2 minutes and 15 seconds. With this quality and sample count, we're getting close to the quality of bucket rendering with a very high setting. If I compare the two renderings, you can see that the very high settings are still slightly better. Let me zoom in a bit more so we can see it better. This is 4096, and this is the bucket quality. Now, if I switch to 5120, which took 2 minutes and 49 seconds to render, you can hardly see any difference when switching back and forth between bucket quality and progressive rendering. So, this is just another option for rendering your final image. The advantage is that you can adjust your rendering using just one parameter, the samples. However, keep in mind that working this way will result in much longer render times, and you'll be giving up the benefits of bucket rendering with its numerous additional settings that we haven't explored yet. In general, I would recommend working with bucket rendering, and if you only need a simple mode, it's a pretty fast way to achieve a final rendering.